What causes a person to investigate the paranormal? Depending on whom you ask, the answer to that question varies. Tonight, we'll ask Nelson Nauss of the Ghost Guild what set him on this path. The answer might surprise you. Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Maroc, and if you're just finding the show, thanks for giving it a try. If you've been with me for a while, thanks for keeping the faith. I'll apologize for some audio problems I've had since restarting the show after a long break. I've tried sound dampening panels, changes in the EQ, and a few other tweaks, but I had already recorded the last episode and most of this one before realizing the problem was the type of audio connector I was using didn't play well with the new desktop. As you can hear, I think the new way of recording sounds much better. The interview for tonight's show has a different set of audio issues between a not-so-stable internet connection and an approaching storm that knocked out my power less than 5 minutes after the interview was over. I feel lucky that we finally did it, though. This conversation has been a long time coming, as they say. Without further ado, let me introduce you to my friend Nelson. Nelson's first exposure to the paranormal came at a very young age in his childhood home, and it forever changed how he viewed the world around him. It wasn't until 2007 that his avid interest saw him joining 2 paranormal groups in an effort to seek answers. In 2016, Nelson co-founded the Ghost Guild. Nelson works in healthcare information technology with a large academic medical center in Chapel Hill. He is originally from Montreal, Canada, and speaks French as his first language. He moved to North Carolina in 1991. In his free time, he enjoys spending time with his daughter, Lego, cooking, and drone photography. Let's dive in with Nelson. Hi, Nelson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Nikki?
I'm doing great. I am so excited to be podcasting again after a long break. And I'm really excited to have you back as my first interview, or have you
Uh,
as my first interview now that I'm back, I should say.
Well, I'm excited to have you back. I was disappointed when I heard that you had decided to stop for a while, but I'm glad that you've changed your mind and that you're proceeding with the podcast. So we're happy to support you and definitely excited to be your first guest on the new series or updated series.
Thank you. And this has been a long time coming because we have talked about having you on the podcast for years, but I never actually seriously said, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Let's schedule it. Shame on me. But even though I have known you for a long time, my listeners, many of them probably don't. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am originally from Montreal, Canada. And I got my interest started in the paranormal based on an experience that I had in the home that I grew up in Montreal. And it was an experience that forever shaped me. And I've been curious uh, or trying to understand exactly what it was. And it was one of those things that I recall, like looking back in my childhood now, and I was so afraid of being in this home after this experience, and I was afraid to speak about it. And this is where, and I have you and Inspire specifically to thank for this because it wasn't until I moved to North Carolina that I found this meetup group that you had started with George. And for once, I was able to meet with people and talk about my experience. I never felt comfortable talking about what I had experienced with before. And that just really got me into wanting to understand and trying to explain what I had experienced as a child. And so for that, I'm forever grateful of of you all yeah, having granted that opportunity for me to start looking into this. But my experience, which and if anyone that knows me has probably heard this over and over and over again. So, but I was a young child. I was roughly about 7 or so years old, and we lived in a multi-level home, and it was time for me to go to bed. So I started making my way up the stairs, and I made up, the first half of a flight of stairs up. I turned and getting ready to get up the other second half of a flight of stairs, and I just froze. I just recall just like completely freezing, and I don't know if it was just like I couldn't move, but I just remember just being frozen. And as I looked up at the top of the staircase, there appeared to be this thing, and it was human shaped, humanoid. And the best way to describe it is it was like static, the same as if you were like when you watch the TV and the channel goes off air like they used to. You
Hmm.
had this like gray staticky like shh, it looked
Yeah.
exactly like that, but it was the figure of a person. And as if that wasn't enough, so what made this even more weird is that there appeared to be something coming from this thing. It went towards the floor to what appeared to be some other shape, which I could best describe as being like a dog. So like a leash and a dog. It was what it basically looked like. So like a human, a leash, and a dog. And so I don't know how long exactly I was there, but I know at some able to turn around and make my way back down the stairs and tell my mother that there was a man upstairs. And
Hmm.
so she followed me up. And of course, by that point, there was nothing gone. I remember uh, after this never wanting to be in the house by myself. Whenever I would open all the doors and the garage doors, and I would stand outside waiting for my parents to get home. I had an absolute fear of making my basement. I just couldn't explain it. And what ended up being so fascinating about it is that after I had moved to North Carolina and I started getting more comfortable with what I had experienced and wanting to understand it, I had made my way back to Montreal, and I was driving in front of the house because I do periodically like to drive by to see how much the neighborhood has changed.
Hmm.
And when I drove by the house, I noticed that my old neighbors, were outside. And so I stopped and I went and I spoke with them. And I knew that there had been someone that lived in the house before I had passed in the house. And so I started asking questions to them about this particular individual. And their response was that they really didn't get to know him that well. He was very secluded, didn't really like speaking with people. All they really remembered about him is that he would always go out and walk his dog.
Oh.
And so that just kind of put two and two together for me. Well, was that him that I saw? I don't know. But the fact of having a leash dog, and the fact that this is like something that he did regularly,
Hmm.
um, it's certainly interesting. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I still to this day I'm still fascinated by it.
That is a very fascinating story, and I have some follow-up questions for you. So did you ever tell your parents? Like I know you said you turned around and you were going to tell your mom. Did you? Did she ever say anything about having a similar experience?
She did not. My mom, which is interesting you would ask that because my mom has had her share of experiences, including, I don't know if you want me to go into details with this, but like, for example, when her father passed away, she actually dreamt about it. She dreamt that he was passing and looked at the clock in her dream. And when she woke up, she looked at the clock and says, it woke up my father and says, we have to go to the hospital.
Mm,
And they made their way to the hospital. Her father passed, and it was at the same time. So she's had things like this happen to her throughout her life that she as well has not been able to explain. So she's not like against the idea like of like these things happening, but she
yeah,
had not shared with me any specific experiences she's had in that house. Um, but I did tell her. I mean, there was a man up there, so yeah,
yeah,
I think she, yeah, I would have hoped she would have said something to me if she. But of course, maybe she didn't because she didn't want me to be afraid. I don't know.
right.
Parents are protective that way.
Yes, they are. And we can talk a little bit about your being on the other side of that in just a minute. Um,
Yeah.
so the staticky figure, have you, when in your investigations, since you've been doing this, have you ever heard of anybody else describe something like that?
I've heard of like shadowy figures, dark masses. I've never actually heard anything like being like a static, like
Mhm.
so I've not specifically the way that I would describe this, I've not heard anyone describe anything close to it.
I have actually heard it on a few episodes of a podcast I listen to called Monsters Among Us. And it's a call-in show where people just call in and leave voicemails of their stories. And then the host plays several of them and kind of gives his commentary in between stories. And I have heard of that. And if I can find an episode that's got that kind of description on it, I'll just share it with you because it it might be helpful for you to hear that somebody else has had that experience, or you may have a different way of describing it than they did.
That'd
Um,
be great. I'd
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, because I mean, if I don't do something with all the knowledge I gain listening to a million other podcasts, what's the point? So it's a fun podcast anyway. Okay, so moving on from that and heading into your experience as a parent wanting to protect your child. That is all I'm going to say, and I will let you tell that story.
Yeah, well, actually, I guess it's really not necessarily protecting my child here. Is probably unknowingly or unwillingly what exposing my child. Um, but this is just one of those things that for all the years that this is one that definitely has me scratching my head. But this was a visit that I made to Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia. And one of the stories, although it's not like they don't they don't have much information about it, but one of the stories is that there's this little girl that haunts the halls there. They even have a room dedicated to her, although it's necessarily the room where she was in. But um, so this is a girl story or the legends ago that she lived at the asylum. There's different ideas that she was other patients, but I think the one that I'm more I believe more of the other story that she was actually born there. Her mother was a patient, but so let me regroup my thoughts here.
Mhm.
So when I was so when I knew I was going to be going to Trans Allegheny, I mean, like most of us, we like to do a little bit of research, try to get an understanding of what we might encounter or what we might want to potentially try to engage, who we want to try to engage with. And so this particular story is one that was that kind of got my attention. And so I got to thinking, is like, how do I communicate with a little girl? I'm a firm believer in not just going into locations and just plummeting just a bunch of questions, you know. And
Mhm.
I always explain it the way that, like, if you're in a grocery store, you would not take kindly to someone coming to you just to steal a whole bunch of questions you don't even know who they are. So I try to take an approach more about sharing information about me pertinent to the questions that I then want to ask about them. And so for a little girl, I really couldn't think of anything other than talking about my own daughter. And so I started sharing about my daughter, the candies, her favorite candies, just kind of things like that. And then kind of asking, like, hey, what's your favorite candy? Or what games do you like to play? I didn't get any responses to any of it upon reviewing all the data. And but what is interesting about this is when I came back home, my daughter started waking up at the exact same time, 11 o'clock every night, and she was terrified. You could just see the look on her face. It was just fear. And she wouldn't talk about it. She didn't want to talk about it. And this happened over multiple nights. And I eventually got her to at least say that there was a little girl in her room.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay. He's like, well, I mean, this is normal. I mean, children sometimes, have, see things or imaginary friends or, whatever. And I wasn't really putting two and two together yet. And this continued. And I eventually asked her, one of the nights after, I asked her, I was like, well, does this little girl have a name? And she paused, looked at me like as like she was hesitating, and then she just said, Illy.
Mm.
And that's when I had goosebumps. I mean, that's when I connected it all together for me. Of course, I can't prove any of it. I don't even know if
Right.
it really exists. But so the story with um, with a girl that haunts the halls at Trans Allegheny is that she was the daughter of a woman named Gladys. And Gladys was abandoned by her husband during the Civil War. And she ended up being abused by Civil War soldiers on multiple occasions. And eventually, this caused her to go mad. And she became, she was admitted to Trans Allegheny while she was pregnant by one of the encounters.
Mm.
And her baby was born in the asylum in 1863, um, dying of a pneumonia at the age of 9 years old. And her name was Lily. And so when my daughter said that this little girl's name was Illy, and at the time she couldn't say Lily,
Yeah.
it hit me. Um, and if that wasn't enough to make you question this, uh, I went downstairs after all of this, after this transpired, and the morning after, when she had gone to school, I went upstairs into her room and I brought some sage. I burnt some sage to try to cleanse the room. If you believe in that, I figured it was worth a try.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, I had a conversation. I just spoke openly with Lily if she was there, informing her that my speaking of my daughter was not an invitation for her to come and visit her, and that she needed to go back. And I didn't say a word to my daughter, who had been getting up at 11 o'clock every night for multiple nights. I did not say a word of me doing this. And that night, it stopped. She slept
Wow.
through the whole night and it never. So all that just makes me scratch my head. Like, what? Like, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you made an impression on Lily and she followed you home. And I know there is no way to prove this, but
Yeah.
it's certainly a good story and it actually really happened. So even if it wasn't Lily, um, it was it's a very interesting coincidence.
Yeah. I mean, I just put it out as a personal experience. And I mean, there's not much I can do now. If you want me to, I could add that we did
Hmm.
return to Trans-Allegheny
Yes.
since then. And I was a little on the fence about, because this is multiple years now, I was a little on the fence about talking to my daughter about it beforehand. I didn't want to reignite anything or any fears or anything like that. But I did decide to ask if she remembered anything, and she vividly remembered it. She even went as far as describing Little Lily, and I only wish that there was like some record of Lily and a picture of Lily so I could
Hmm.
compare the description to a picture. But what I thought was so sweet though is that she would give her a gift package. She made a little box, and she wrote her a note, and she gave her some like instant tattoos, even included water bottles for her to be able to apply those tattoos and instructions on how to apply the tattoos, and gave her a whole sign and other other things to play with. But it was very clear. I did relay the message when I went back into Lily's room as I was presenting this to Lily that, my daughter very explicitly said that, this was not an invitation for you to come and visit her. So I did share that message with her. And she has not, I mean, it's not happened since I've returned. So
That's
uh,
good.
I guess I guess she listens, or maybe she just was there. Who knows?
So how old was your daughter the first time?
She was about 7 or 8 years old.
And she is how old now?
She is 10 now.
And you just went back just what, 2 months ago?
Yeah, 2 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so sweet of your daughter to send Lily a gift package with all of the little details covered. She's going to be a very thoughtful gift giver when she gets older, or even now.
She is.
That is so sweet. So, when she described Lily or Ellie, um, did did she sound like Lily was like a 9-year-old, or does she seem younger than that? Did she give you that kind of detail?
Yeah, she seemed to be right about the same as Ellie is now, which 10, 9, I guess, would be about the same. Some of the notable features, I guess, would be that she had blondish hair. Um, and what I thought was interesting is her description of her clothing. She said she was wearing something that was made out of a material that she couldn't describe.
Hmm.
She couldn't like it's not something she had seen before, which was interesting. Um, when you think about it, like why would someone think about a material that you've never seen before? I mean, I, I don't know. My daughter's worn every kind of material I could think of.
Yeah,
So
right?
I don't know why, I don't know if it's just a patient of color I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. She even she said at one point that she had what she was sleeping on her side, and that she opened her eyes, and Lee was there watching her, like on the side of the bed, watching her.
Well, that would certainly creep me out. And
That
I'm an
would creep me
adult.
out. Yes. So I completely understood her being terrified at the time and not wanting to talk about it.
Right. But obviously, even though it was scary at the time, she's well adjusted enough that she not only could tell you more detail now, but she also was like, let me send her a gift. And that's just amazing.
Yeah. And I did try to explain the story of her, and, so, it's not something to be feared. She was probably curious. And, so I think she understood that.
So is that the most, well, I mean, I imagine it would be the most interesting thing that's happened to you on an investigation, but do you have any other investigative stories that you would like to share with us?
Well, that wasn't really my own during an investigation, right? That was something
Well,
after the fact,
that's
right?
true, true, true.
But no, we've certainly had things that have happened that we're still trying to explain. Um, and one that's rather recent, and we shared this, and we'll probably talk about Moriki shortly, in terms of, like, how contract and all that other stuff works. But we did share it recently, last year, the reveal that we do every year. And that was when I was in the Mordecai house, and the we've had the contract now for the Mordecai house since what, 20, I think it's
16.
27. Yeah, well, we started officially in 2017, but yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, right.
we've investigated that location now for multiple years, and we've had things here or there that have been pretty interesting. But I've never I've had friends talk about, like, shadow figures and things like that, but I never actually experienced one until um, that particular investigation at Mordecai, where I was alone in the house, and I was in one of the bedrooms, and I had placed an EDI meter, which is it's a multi-sensor device that records pressure, temperature, humidity, uh, EMF, and a bunch of different things. But it records all of this, and we had placed it in the other room, and it had started off right about the same time that I started having goosebumps. And I was in the process of asking questions in the room, about having admitted your wife to a mental institution, for, what was it, for having gone mad or something like that.
Hmm.
And the stories associated to all this. But so I was in the process of questioning. My line of questioning was around that. I started getting goosebumps. The EDI meter started going off, and I decided I would go across the way into the other room to see what was happening there. And as I crossed the way, I decided to turn my head and look down the hallway towards Helen's room. And I I just kind of turned my head back into where I was going, and then I did a double take because I was like, I just saw something. Um, and so I backed up, and I turned around and looked again, and this thing I saw basically just kind of went flying towards the right and just, like, disappeared. As I walked into Helen's room to see what I had just seen, see if somebody was there, nobody there. And but it was a very clear outline, like dark figure. It was in front of a window, and it was blocking the light coming from the window. So and I think initially I thought there used to be a mannequin that was right around that area in front of the fireplace that had Helen's dress on it. And now it's actually laying on the bed and the mannequin's in the closet. So I think I just initially thought, oh, it's just the mannequin,
Right.
but it wasn't. um, and and so I I don't know. I made my way downstairs. I went outside and I'm just processing all of this. And then the rest of the team comes up because we're at the end of time. Um, and they look at me and they're like something's up. Like what happened? And so I started explaining what I just seen. Everybody went upstairs with me. We were trying to recreate this. We thought, could it have been like on the outside because there's a light right outside that window? But the angle just of work. Not only that, I mean, the fact that this was blocking the light from the window in the first place, it had to be on the inside.
Right.
And so we dismissed that and then thought maybe could have been my reflection because from where I was standing, there's like a little parlor behind me where that outside or second floor like deck or patio is. And there's a parking lot right out there. I mean, there's trees in between, but we thought, could it have been a car? I didn't hear a car, but could it have been a car? There are lights going through the window and reflecting my shadow onto that wall in Helen's room.
Mm.
And we've got pictures of where we're trying to recreate this with light sources and stuff, and everything was at least a foot or 2 feet above the windowsill of Helen's room, not even inside the room. It was on the outside. There's just the angle again didn't work. Um, so yeah, we're still trying to explain this one, and I keep on thinking to, and I don't know if you want me to, to mention this or not, but I keep on thinking to the video that Inspire caught
Yes.
in the Mordecai house with this, and I don't know if you want to describe it, with this like dark figure
Yeah.
kind of getting in front of the camera and blocking the camera's view.
Yeah.
uh it, you try to put those things together. Could it be the same thing that we experienced? You via the camera and me visually walking
Yeah.
down this hallway.
And so here's the thing. When Inspire had the contract, so we had it from 2008 to 2016, and then y'all took it over in 2017. And the when the, I was not with Inspire until 2009. So the first year of investigating Mordecai, I had missed out on that. But one of the stories that the people that worked in the house kept telling George was, we will see a shadow, like a shadowy figure coming down the stairs. So they put the camera, an IR camera in the middle of the night with the lights off, focused on the stairs. And they got, of course, being science-based, we have to just call it an anomaly, but something blocked out the light from the camera and the camera went black and then came right back up very quickly, as if somebody had just walked past very fast and you couldn't see who walked past. But because we couldn't see what made the camera go dark, um, it was really hard to say, well, we caught a ghost. But at the same time, it was not a camera malfunction because there was still time code on running on the screen. So it wasn't that the camera turned off, the time code was consistent. It was that something blocked the light. And so between those stories and then what we captured on camera and now your experience, I would say that there is possibly something really going on there.
Yeah.
Plus all the EVP we got over the years. Like having a male voice in on recording when there was no male anywhere inside or near the house at the time. It's really hard to explain that.
Yeah, and you got that in the room where I was standing before I crossed the hallway to get to the other
Yes.
room. So yeah,
Yes.
so
I love
no,
that
it's
house.
great to be able to exchange those stories and find these things that are, you know, relatively close to one another. Um,
It really is. And it's just, it's corroboration, even though we didn't experience it together, to have similar instances happening to two completely different groups, and plus the stories from the people who work there who've seen it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that's fascinating as well because for the first time this year, we always do our presentations. And at this point, maybe we'll just talk about Mordecai Historic Park and the contracts, but we do as part of investigating there as being the exclusive paranormal team for Mordecai Historic Park. We present our findings every October, and one thing that was asked of us this year was that the staff had never had an opportunity to actually attend our presentations because these presentations take place during a festival that they had
right.
at the park. And so they asked if we would come and do a presentation just for the staff. And it was interesting because we're presenting these things and they're like nodding their heads. They're like, oh yeah, that happened to me. Um, and the most fascinating one for me is one of the things we reported on multiple occasions is the side door unlocking and opening itself.
hmm
And like one of the docents there said, "Yeah, that happened. Like that happened to me." Like, and I was like, "Really?" It's like, "Let's chat." So, but it was fascinating to, again, like to get that feedback from them, people that are there more often than we are, experiencing similar things. Uh, certainly found fascinating.
Absolutely. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall for that presentation.
Share with them the video from Inspire, because we basically took some of the slides from the past presentations we've done, and I shared
Mhm.
that one, and they were all fascinated by it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sitters that we had, which are for people who are listening who don't do these types of paranormal investigations for a location like Mordecai Historic Park in Raleigh, you tend to have some volunteer or employee of the park volunteer to spend the night with the investigation group just to make sure that everything goes smoothly and that there are no real rules broken, which of course, we don't break the rules, but and also everything is wired for security, and sometimes these security systems have issues. And we
Mhm.
had that happen a few times. And when the police officers show up, it's really nice to have an employee of the park there saying, "No, sir, we're really supposed to be here. It's okay."
That happened twice to us now. The Raleigh Police Department have had that show up.
Oh, you broke up. You said it happened twice?
It happened twice. The Raleigh Police Department has had to show up for investigations.
So we should carry little cards that say, official investigation group for the city of Raleigh or something like that. Not quite a badge, but something legit.
Yeah.
Oh, the funny thing was the year that that happened, or the time that happened to us, and the alarms just kept going off and kept going off, and we'd turn them off and they'd go off again, and it was in buildings we weren't even in, like we hadn't gotten to yet. And so two police officers came up in a single car, and it was a man and a woman, and while the man was talking to the sitter, I started talking to the woman, and I was like, "So, how often do you have to do this? And where, like, have you had any interesting stories?" Because I'm always asking that even before I had a podcast. Do you have any interesting stories from like spooky stuff that happens? Because since you work the night shift, and she started talking about the Oakwood Cemetery, which is the historic cemetery in Raleigh, and I just got so excited. So I made the best use of my time during that pause.
Cool.
Yeah. I recommend anybody ask those questions when you have a chance and they're not too busy to answer.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've alluded to the group that you co-founded, and we haven't really said the name. So the name is the Ghost Guild, and why don't you tell us about the Ghost Guild and what it does?
Yeah, we're a registered nonprofit paranormal research organization. We basically consist of dedicated volunteers, and we all share a passion for history, science, and the unexplained. So we try to dive into all those different things. But we made a decision as an organization a while ago to not take on residential cases. So our focus is really more on locations of historical significance. So we tend to work with historical societies, including, for example, the Mordecai Historic Park. Um, but we like to take a science-based approach on our investigations. So that means that we observe, we gather data, we form hypotheses, and then we kind of go through the process of imagining possible solutions to explain the observations that we've made. But we always try to explain data through scientific principles. So any data that doesn't meet our standards, we basically discard they shared them as personal experiences because scientifically prove them. So, but we do, as part of being the paranormal research team from Mordecai Historic Park, we present our findings for the research we've done there every year, and that's the last Saturday of October. So this year, I believe that is on the 26th of October. So we'll be doing 3 different presentations during the day. So we hope anyone listening to this would be interested in joining. By all means, you can see us. We always have prizes as well, including the opportunity to join us on an investigation of the historic park.
Oh, can I come? No, just kidding. If anybody is in the Raleigh area and wants a chance to investigate Mordecai, definitely show up for the Haunted Mordecai presentations because that house and all the buildings surrounding it is just amazing. I still wave at the ghosties when I drive by. I
Yeah,
can't help it.
it's pretty cool to be able to say you're investigating the oldest home in Raleigh.
Yes.
Basically, the oldest home in Raleigh on its original foundation. Let's not get confused with the Joe Lane Museum House.
Yeah, that's true. And you guys have done some other, pretty high profile historical sites around Raleigh. You've gotten into a lot more places than we ever even thought of. I might be jealous. Um, do you have like any of those you can share? And if not, I'll edit this out.
Oh boy, let me think. The
Okay.
old coffin house, now known as Death and Taxes. We've done that. We've done the Tucker House, the Borden Building, the train station. Uh,
Seaboard?
Seaboard, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Yes, Seaboard Station, um, train station, because it was the
Mhm.
Amtrak train station for a while, but there was a standoff that took place there. And um, there's at least one, it's been a while, but at least one person that lost their life there. And at the time, one of our team members who considers herself an empath, um, it felt like she was communicating with this individual. It tied into the story that we researched and found about the standoff. So that's what made it interesting.
Mhm.
Um, I wish I had more details for you. I was
I
cut clip.
will.
I wasn't researching. I was looking up my data for that one for tonight. But
Yeah,
uh,
no, and I surprised you with that bonus question. I will actually Google it and see if I can find it, and if I can, I'll put it in the show notes so people can look it up and read the story if we can find it.
Okay, cool. We actually did a post on it, on the story, and I could even
Oh,
forward
okay.
that to you as well,
That's way better.
if that helps.
Yeah, because then I'll link to it, and that'll be an easy way for people to find the Ghost Guild, which was going to be my next question. How do people find you?
Ah, yeah. We So yeah, you can find those skills. We have a website, but I mean, primarily, we do post regular like history, legend, lore type content on a Facebook and Instagram. So you can find us there and follow us. Just see our events, our upcoming presentations, and sometimes we do open up some investigations to the public for folks to join us and basically be part of the team for an overnight investigation. So we do offer those opportunities at least once a year.
So exciting. Thank you so much, Nelson, for coming on the podcast and sharing all of these really fascinating stories. I really appreciate it.
No, I really having us over and all of the support you've shown me and the Ghost Guild throughout the years. And I very much appreciate our friendship and look forward to a long relationship ahead.
I do too. Thank you so much. Thanks again to Nelson for coming on the show, and thanks to you for listening. If you're interested in sharing your own personal paranormal experiences, or if you have an idea for an episode topic, please reach out through the contact form at peeppodcast.com. That's PEEP podcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. While you're there, subscribe to my newsletter to keep up with the podcast and all my creative and energetic endeavors. I only email it once a month. You'll receive briefs on recent episodes, information on any upcoming appearances, and so far in September and October, I have 8 live events scheduled, plus some additional fun stuff. If you enjoy the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app. Share it with friends and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Ratings, reviews, and shares help platforms like Apple Podcast and Spotify know it's worthy of surfacing to new listeners. A huge thank you to everyone who has given the show some love for helping it grow. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, or any other way, I absolutely appreciate your being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.